How did a simple health gift from my daughter turn into proof that she never trusted me at all? By the time her phone was exploding with location alerts from hundreds of miles away, she already knew I had understood everything. What she didn't know was how calmly I was about to respond, using the system she thought I was too old to notice. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? It started on a Tuesday evening in my kitchen. Vera showed up unannounced, which wasn't unusual. She had a key. She'd always had a key, even after moving out 6 years ago. The unusual part was the bright blue shopping bag she placed on the counter between us, the kind of bag that signals expensive electronics. "Dad, I got you something," she said, smiling in that careful way she had. The way people smile when they're about to do you a favor you didn't ask for. I was making tea. The kettle was whistling. I turned it off and looked at her, then at the bag. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion, just, I worry about you. Living alone, working those long hours. I wanted you to have something that could help." She pulled out a sleek black box, Smartwatch, top of the line, judging by the minimalist packaging and the weight of it in her hands. "Vera, this is too much." "It's not." She opened the box before I could protest further. "It tracks your heart rate, your steps, your sleep. If anything happens, if your heart rate spikes or drops, it can alert emergency contacts. I already set it up for you." That last part should have registered differently. I already set it up for you, but I was tired, and she seemed genuinely concerned, and I suppose part of me wanted to believe my daughter cared enough to spend money she probably couldn't afford on a gift for her old man. "You really didn't have to do this." "I wanted to." She took my wrist gently and fastened the watch. Her fingers were cold. "There. Perfect fit. Let me just pair it with your phone real quick." She had my phone in her hand before I realized she'd picked it up from the counter. Her thumbs moved fast across the screen, tapping through menus I barely understood. App downloads, permissions, notifications. "All set," she said, handing it back. "You're good to go. Just wear it all the time, okay? Even when you sleep. That's when it's most important," I nodded. "Thank you, sweetheart." She hugged me then, quick and tight, and left soon after. I finished making my tea and sat at the kitchen table, looking at the watch on my wrist. The screen glowed softly, showing my heart rate. 72 beats per minute? Normal. I didn't think much of it until 2 days later. Thursday morning, I stopped by the pharmacy near my office to pick up vitamins. The pharmacist, an older woman I'd known for years, noticed the watch. "Oh, fancy," she said. "My son got me one of those last Christmas. Took me a week to figure out how to turn off all the location tracking." "Location tracking?" "Yeah, they all have it now. GPS, constant updates. My son said it was for safety, but honestly, I didn't like the idea of anyone knowing where I was every second of the day." She laughed. "I'm old-fashioned that way." I smiled politely and left with my vitamins, but her words stuck with me. Location tracking, constant updates. That evening, I sat in my living room with a cup of coffee and finally looked at the watch settings. It took me 20 minutes to find the right menu, but once I did, everything became clear. Location services, enabled. Share. Location, always. Emergency contacts, Vera Brentour. Real-time tracking, active. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I opened my phone and checked the app she'd installed. There it was, a map with a blue dot representing me, sitting in my living room. Refresh rate, every 60 seconds. The watch vibrated. A notification from Vera. "Hey Dad, hope you're having a good evening. Just checking in." I set the phone down. My coffee had gone cold. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was angry, I wasn't, not yet, but because my mind refused to slow down. Thoughts kept circling, drifting back to moments I'd filed away as insignificant, harmless, normal. Remembering, I realized, was the problem. Little things surfaced first. Small habits, repetitions, patterns I'd noticed before but never questioned because they wore the disguise of affection. Vera calling every day at the same time, for example. Always with the same opening line. "Just checking in." If I didn't answer right away, she'd call again and again. Once, after I'd left my phone at home during a long Saturday walk, I came back to 17 missed calls. 17, and a voicemail, her voice tight, breathless, asking if I was okay, if something had happened, if she needed to come over right now. I'd laughed it off afterward. Told her I was fine. Told her I'd just forgotten my phone, like people do. But now, lying awake in the dark, I saw that moment differently. Then there were the questions. Where I was going. What time I'd be back. Who I was meeting. Questions asked casually, conversationally, but always asked. Always followed up on, always remembered. And the slight shift in her tone when I mentioned plans she hadn't known about beforehand. Not anger, not accusation, just a thin edge of tension, as if I'd failed to notify the right authority. She framed everything as concern, as love, as responsibility, as a daughter just wanting to make sure her father was safe. That framing had worked, on me, at least. I remembered a conversation from 3 months earlier. I'd mentioned, offhandedly, that I was thinking about taking a weekend trip to the coast with a colleague from work. Nothing dramatic, just a few days away. Her response had been immediate. "Alone? Dad? Are you sure that's a good idea?" "What if something happens and no one's around to help you?" I'd reassured her, smiled, told her I'd be fine, told her I was still perfectly capable of taking care of myself. She'd gone quiet for a moment, then she said softly, "I know, Dad. I just worry." And just like that, the guilt had settled in. Heavy, familiar. I'd apologized for worrying her. That was the pattern I realized now. She didn't forbid, she didn't demand. She redirected. She made independence feel irresponsible, made solitude feel risky, made my own life feel like something that required supervision. I sat at the desk in my bedroom and opened my laptop. The house was silent. I searched for articles about adult children and aging parents, found a dozen think pieces about caregiver anxiety, blurred boundaries, control disguised as care, different writers, same themes, same vocabulary, monitoring, infantilization, emotional leverage. I wasn't even 60. I was 49, healthy, employed, competent. I managed international contracts and regulatory frameworks for a living. But somehow, in Vera's mind, I'd become someone fragile, someone who needed oversight, someone who couldn't be trusted to manage his own existence. The watch vibrated again on my wrist, a soft buzz. Another notification. "Dad, I see you're still up. Everything okay? You should get some sleep." I checked the time. 11:47 p.m. She was watching. Not abstractly, not metaphorically, right now. Watching the blue dot that represented me, sitting still at a desk in my own home. I turned the watch face down and went to bed. Friday at work, I was in a meeting with our logistics coordinator and 2 department heads. We were discussing a supplier contract in Eastern Europe, complex terms, layered compliance requirements, currency exposure across 3 jurisdictions. The kind of discussion that required attention, memory, and judgment. I'd been doing this for 23 years. I knew the systems, I knew the risks, I knew where companies got hurt and where they got lazy. The meeting ran long, nearly 2 hours. When it ended, the coordinator shook my hand. "Jared, I don't know how you keep all this straight in your head," he said. "I'd be lost without your notes." One of the department heads laughed. "That's why we keep him around. Best foreign economic specialist we've got." I smiled, gathered my papers, and left the conference room feeling grounded, useful, trusted, respected. Then I checked my phone. 3 messages from Vera. "Dad, where are you? You're not at the office. Is everything okay? Please call me when you get this." I was at the office. I'd been 1 floor up, 15 meters away from my usual desk. Apparently that was enough to trigger alarm. I didn't call back. I went to my desk and worked until 5. Then I walked to a small cafe 2 blocks away, ordered a sandwich, and sat by the window. My phone rang. Vara. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. I answered. "Dad, where are you? I've been trying to reach you." "I'm at a cafe, having dinner." "Which cafe?" I paused. "Does it matter?" "I just want to make sure you're somewhere safe." "Vara, I'm fine." "I know, She stopped. Took a breath. Okay, just let me know when you get home, okay?" "Sure." I hung up and finished my sandwich in silence. That night, I opened the watch app again, scrolled through the history. Every place I'd been for the last 4 days was there. Timestamps, duration, routes, my entire life, mapped and monitored. I thought about confronting her, asking why she thought this was acceptable, why she needed this level of access. But I knew how that conversation would go. She'd apologize, she'd cry, she'd say she was only trying to help, that she loved me, that she couldn't bear the idea of something happening when she wasn't there to stop it. And I'd feel guilty again? No, confrontation wouldn't work. Vera didn't respond to arguments. She responded to systems, to structures, to rules she couldn't bend. I needed a different approach. Saturday morning, I went for a walk. Just a walk, nothing dramatic, nothing planned. I needed to think, and I thought best when I was moving. The city was quiet at 7 a.m. Street cleaners humming past, a few early joggers, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery on the corner. I walked without direction, letting my feet choose the path. The watch vibrated every few minutes. I ignored it. My phone buzzed twice during the first 20 minutes. Both times, Vara. I didn't check the messages. Not yet. I needed this time to think clearly, without her voice in my head telling me what I should feel, what I should do, how I should respond. By the time I reached the park near the river, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to explain. I wasn't going to try to make Vera understand why constant surveillance wasn't love. It was control. I was simply going to stop participating. But I needed to do it carefully, quietly, in a way that made the point without giving her room to reframe it as misunderstanding or overreaction. I sat on a bench and watched the river. The water was calm, moving steadily downstream without resistance, without complaint, just flowing in the direction it was meant to go. I thought about the systems I used at work. Documentation, permissions, institutional authority, the things that couldn't be argued with because they weren't personal, they were procedural. Vara had used technology to monitor me. I could use systems to reclaim my autonomy. The realization settled over me like certainty. This wasn't about winning an argument or proving a point. It was about establishing facts, creating a record, making sure that my choices were documented, formal, unambiguous. I pulled out my phone and started making notes. First, the watch. I needed it to keep moving, keep transmitting, but without me attached to it. That would make the point more clearly than simply turning it off. Turning it off would prompt immediate panic, phone calls, maybe even a visit. She'd assume something had happened, that I was in trouble, that her fears were justified. But if the watch kept working, kept sending signals from places I wasn't, that would raise different questions. Questions she'd have to confront on her own. Questions about why she needed to know my location at all times. Questions about whether her concern was really about my safety or about her need for control. Second, financial boundaries. I'd always kept Vera as an emergency contact on my bank accounts, a holdover from years ago when she'd helped me set up online banking. Back then, it had seemed practical. She was good with technology, I was learning, and having someone who could help if I got locked out made sense. But that was years ago. I'd learned. I was perfectly capable of managing my own accounts now, and having her listed as an emergency contact gave her a level of access I hadn't fully considered until now. That needed to change, not out of spite, but because autonomy meant autonomy in all areas. Third, legal clarity. I wasn't incapacitated. I wasn't incompetent. I wasn't showing signs of cognitive decline or poor judgment, but I could see the path Vera's concern might take if left unchecked. If she convinced herself I was incapable of making good decisions, she might try to formalize that belief. I needed that documented, formalized, just in case Vera's concern ever escalated into something more official. A declaration of competency, advanced directives, clear documentation that I was acting of sound mind and free will. I spent the rest of the morning researching on my phone. Found a legal consultant who specialized in family law and elder rights, though I bristled slightly at the term elder. I was 49, not 70, but the services were what I needed. Made an appointment for Monday. Found the customer service number for my bank. Made a note to call them first thing Monday morning. Then I looked up train schedules. There was a long-distance route that ran from the central station to the coast, then continued north through 4 other regions. 12-hour journey, multiple stops, hundreds of miles. The train ran every day. Departed at 2:15 p.m., arrived at its final destination just after midnight. Perfect. I walked home slowly, letting the plan settle in my mind, testing it for weaknesses, for places where Vera might find a way to turn it against me. But the more I examined it, the more solid it seemed. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't hiding anything illegal. I was simply exercising my right to privacy and autonomy. If that made her uncomfortable, that was something she'd need to work through on her own. Sunday, I packed the watch carefully in a small pouch with its charging cable, made sure it was fully charged, checked that the location services were still active, still transmitting. Then I went to the train station. The concourse was busy. Weekend travelers, families with luggage, couples holding hands. The energy was different from weekday mornings. More relaxed, more optimistic. People heading toward vacations and visits, not obligations. I bought a cup of coffee and sat on a bench near Platform 7, watching people board the northbound train. A man in his 50s walked past carrying a worn leather bag. He had kind eyes and the weathered face of someone who'd spent years working outdoors. He wore a simple jacket and comfortable shoes, the clothing of someone who traveled often and traveled light. He stopped near the platform entrance, checking his ticket against the departure board. I approached him. "Excuse me." He looked up. "Yes?" I held out the pouch. "I wonder if you could do me a favor. I have a smartwatch here that I don't need anymore, but it's still good, fully charged, works perfectly. Would you mind taking it? You can keep it, give it away, whatever you'd like." He blinked, surprised. Are you sure?" "Completely sure. I just don't want to throw it away, and you look like someone who'd put it to good use, or know someone who would." He hesitated, then smiled. "Well, that's very kind of you. My grandson's been wanting one of these. Can't afford it on my pension, but this would make his whole month. Thank you." "You're welcome. I hope he enjoys it." "I'm sure he will. Thank you again." He took the pouch carefully, tucking it into his bag, and boarded the train. I watched through the window as he found his seat, settling in with the easy comfort of someone who'd made this journey many times before. 3 minutes later, the doors closed and the train pulled away from the platform, heading north. I finished my coffee and walked home. My wrist felt lighter. My chest felt clearer. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. For the first time in days, I slept well Sunday night. 8 solid hours. No vibrations, no alerts, no reminders that someone was watching. I woke Monday morning feeling rested in a way I hadn't experienced in months. The absence of surveillance was almost physical, like someone had removed a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. I made breakfast slowly. Eggs, toast, coffee, sat at my kitchen table and actually tasted the food instead of eating mechanically while checking my phone for messages. No messages from Vara. Interesting. Monday morning, I went to work as usual, checked my phone during lunch. Still nothing from Vera. I'd expected panic by now, frantic calls asking where I was, why the watch showed me hundreds of miles away, whether I was safe, whether I'd been taken somewhere against my will, all the catastrophic scenarios she seemed to keep cataloged in her mind, ready to deploy at the slightest deviation from routine. But there was nothing. Maybe she hadn't noticed yet. Maybe she only checked the app sporadically, despite what I'd assumed about her constant monitoring. Or maybe she had noticed and was trying to figure out what to say, trying to find an approach that wouldn't reveal how much she'd been watching. Either way, I wasn't going to bring it up. At 2 p.m., I left the office and walked to the bank. The branch was quiet. Just one other customer ahead of me, an elderly woman depositing a check. She moved slowly, methodically, and the teller was patient with her, explaining each step of the process without condescension. I waited, watching the interaction, thinking about how easy it would be to assume that elderly woman needed managing, needed someone to take over her finances for her own good. How that kind of thinking started with good intentions and ended with lost autonomy. When my turn came, I approached the counter. The representative was a woman in her 30s with efficient movements and a professional smile. Her nameplate read, Michelle Torres. "Good afternoon. How can I help you today?" I explained what I needed, keeping my voice calm and factual. "I'd like to remove my daughter as an emergency contact and beneficiary on my accounts. I need to update the access permissions." She nodded, her expression neutral. "May I ask why?" "Personal reasons. Nothing dramatic. I just prefer to keep my financial matters private. I'm revising my contact information across several institutions." "That's completely your right. I'll need you to fill out a few forms and we'll update the account accordingly. It should take about 20 minutes. "That's fine." She pulled up my account on her computer, verified my identity, then printed a series of forms. As I filled them out, she explained each one. "This removes emergency contact authorization. This updates your beneficiary designation. You can leave it blank or name someone else. And this confirms that you're making these changes of your own free will and sound judgment." That last phrase made me pause. Sound judgment. As if the bank needed to protect itself against claims that I'd been coerced or confused. As if Vara might eventually try to argue exactly that. I signed each form carefully. Initialed where indicated, dated everything. When I finished, Michelle scanned them into the system and handed me a printed confirmation. "All set, Mr. Brenter. The changes will be active by end of business today. You should receive an email confirmation within the hour." "Thank you. Is there anything else you need?" I hesitated, then asked, "If someone calls claiming to be a family member and asking for account information, what's your protocol?" "We can't provide any information without your explicit written authorization, even to family members, even in claimed emergencies." "Good. And if someone persists?" "We document the attempt and flag your account. If it becomes harassment, we can involve security." "Thank you. I appreciate that." I left the bank feeling calmer than I had in weeks. One more boundary established, one more system in place. Next stop, the legal consultant. Her office was in a modest building near the courthouse. 2 rooms, neatly organized, certificates on the wall, law degree from a state university, 30 years of practice in family law and estate planning, professional memberships in elder law associations. She was older than I'd expected, maybe 60, with gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She stood when I entered and offered her hand. "Mr. Brenter, please sit. You mentioned on the phone that you wanted to discuss autonomy documentation?" "Yes. I want to make sure there's a formal record that I'm fully competent and capable of making my own decisions. Medical, financial, legal, all of it." She leaned back in her chair, studying me. "Has someone challenged your competency?" "Not explicitly, but I have a family member who's been overstepping, monitoring my location without my full understanding of the setup, calling to check on me multiple times daily, treating me as if I'm incapable of managing my own life. I'm concerned that concern could turn into something more formal if I don't establish boundaries now." "How old are you, Mr. Brenter?" 49. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "You're quite young to be dealing with this kind of family dynamic." "That's part of the problem. I'm not elderly. I'm not ill. I'm not showing any signs of decline. But my daughter has convinced herself that I need constant oversight." She nodded slowly, making notes. "And this family member, do they have any legal authority over you currently? Power of attorney, healthcare proxy, anything like that?" "No, but they've been monitoring my location without my full understanding of the situation, and I'm concerned that concern could turn into something more formal if I don't establish boundaries now." "That's wise. We can draft a declaration of competency and have it notarized. It won't prevent someone from filing for guardianship, but it will make it much harder for them to succeed. We can also discuss advanced directives, healthcare proxy, power of attorney, and make sure those documents reflect your current wishes." "How long will this take?" "The declaration can be ready by Friday. The other documents will take about 2 weeks. We'll need to be thorough, detailed enough to demonstrate sound judgment, but not so complex that it raises questions about why you felt this was necessary." "Let's do it." We spent the next hour going through details. She asked careful questions about my health, my work, my daily routines, my relationships. Not invasive, but thorough, building a picture of someone fully capable and independent. "Tell me about your work," she said at one point. "I'm a specialist in foreign economic activity. I've been with the same company for 23 years. I handle international contracts, manage relationships with overseas suppliers, navigate regulatory compliance across multiple jurisdictions." "That's complex work." "It is. It requires attention to detail, understanding of legal frameworks, ability to negotiate across cultural differences. My colleagues trust me. My supervisors rely on me. I'm good at what I do." She made notes. "And your daily life? You live alone?" "Yes. I manage my own household, pay my own bills, maintain my own schedule. I'm completely independent." "Any health issues?" "None. I see my doctor annually. Normal checkups. Everything's fine." "Medications?" "Just vitamins." More notes. By the end, she seemed satisfied. "You're doing the right thing," she said as I stood to leave. "Too many people wait until there's a crisis. You're being proactive. That alone demonstrates sound judgment." "I hope it doesn't come to that." "So do I. But if it does, you'll be prepared." I walked back to my apartment as the sun was setting. The air was cool, the streets quiet. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. My phone buzzed as I unlocked my front door. Vera. "Dad, we need to talk." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I made dinner, pasta with olive oil and garlic, simple and quick, and ate it slowly while reading the news on my tablet. An article about privacy rights in the digital age, another about boundary setting in family relationships. The algorithm was getting good at reading my recent searches. The phone buzzed twice more, both from Vera. "Dad, seriously, call me." "This isn't funny." I finished eating, washed the dishes, made tea, sat on my couch and considered my options. I could ignore her, let her panic escalate until she either calmed down or revealed exactly how far she was willing to go. Or I could respond now, on my terms, and set the tone for whatever came next. I chose the second option, then I called her back. "Dad, finally, what is going on?" Her voice was sharp, strained. I could hear traffic in the background. She was outside somewhere, probably pacing. "What do you mean?" "The watch. It's showing you in 3 different cities. First you were 200 miles north, then you were near the coast. Now you're showing up in some town I've never even heard of. Are you okay? Did someone take your phone? Are you... I'm fine, Vara. Then why is the watch... The watch isn't with me. Silence. Complete, shocked silence. Then, what? I gave it away, to someone who needed it more than I did. You what? I kept my voice calm, measured. I gave it to a traveler at the train station. Nice man. He said his grandson would love it. He seemed very grateful. Dad, that watch cost... I know what it cost, and I appreciate the gesture, but I don't need it. It wasn't just... She stopped. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow. Trying to control herself? It was for your safety. No, Vera, it was for your peace of mind. There's a difference. That's not fair. Isn't it? You set up location tracking without telling me, without explaining what you were enabling. You've been monitoring everywhere I go, every moment of every day. That's not safety, that's surveillance. I was trying to help. By treating me like I'm incapable of living my own life. I never said, you didn't have to say it. You built a system that said it for you. You paired the watch yourself. You enabled all the tracking features. You made yourself the emergency contact without asking if I wanted that. You've been watching me like I'm a child who can't be trusted to cross the street alone. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. Wounded. I worry about you. I know you do, but your worry doesn't give you the right to track me. Your concern doesn't give you permission to monitor my every movement. Dad, I'm 49 years old, Vara. I have a job I'm good at. A job that requires judgment and expertise and trust. I pay my bills. I take care of myself. I don't need a babysitter. I never said you did. You didn't have to say it. You showed it. Every time you called asking where I was. Every time you checked the app to see if I was where you thought I should be. Every time you treated my independence as a problem to be managed instead of a right to be respected. Another silence. Longer this time. I could almost hear her trying to find the argument that would make this my fault. The framing that would turn her surveillance into my unreasonableness. So what now? She asked finally. Now you stop checking on me every 5 minutes. You stop tracking my location. You stop treating me like an adult who's capable of making his own decisions. And if I don't? The question hung in the air. I could hear the challenge in it, the assumption that I wouldn't actually follow through, that this was just talk, just temporary frustration, and eventually I'd back down because that's what I always did. But not this time. Then I'll continue setting boundaries, I said calmly. I've already updated my bank accounts. You're no longer listed as an emergency contact. You no longer have any access to my financial information. I'm working with a legal consultant to formalize my autonomy, to make sure there's a clear record that I'm fully competent and acting of my own free will. This isn't a negotiation, Vera. It's a statement of fact. You went to a lawyer? I did. Because of me? Because I need to protect myself. I heard something break in her voice then, not quite crying, but close. I can't believe you think you need protection from me. I can't believe you think you have the right to monitor me without my consent. I know what you wanted, but what you want doesn't override my right to privacy. Your fear doesn't justify surveillance. And your love, and I know this comes from love, doesn't give you ownership of my life. It is. And until you can see that, we don't have anything more to discuss. She hung up. I sat in my living room, holding the phone, feeling nothing but tired. The conversation had gone exactly as I'd expected. No breakthrough, no sudden realization on her part, no acknowledgement that she'd crossed lines, just defensiveness, just hurt feelings, just the insistence that her intentions made her actions acceptable. I set the phone down and finished my tea. Tuesday passed quietly, so did Wednesday. No calls from Vera, no messages. The silence felt intentional, pointed, like she was waiting for me to apologize, to admit I'd overreacted, to come crawling back asking for forgiveness. But I didn't. Wednesday evening, I was reading when my phone buzzed. Email from the bank. Confirmation that all changes to my accounts had been processed and were now active. I filed the email in a folder I'd created specifically for this purpose. Documentation and evidence. A paper trail showing that I was acting deliberately, rationally, with clear intent. Thursday afternoon, I was at my desk when my phone lit up with a notification. Family group chat. Something we rarely used anymore. Mostly just birthday messages and holiday greetings. The last message had been 3 months ago, someone's anniversary. Vera had posted a screenshot. It showed the Smartwatch app, the map covered in location pins. Dozens of them scattered across 5 different regions, each marked with a timestamp. The trail of the watch's journey north, east, then west, following whatever route the traveler had taken. Below the screenshot, she'd written, "Can someone please explain to me how my father is in 7 places at once?" I watched the chat, saw the typing indicators appear and disappear. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people I barely spoke to anymore, suddenly pulled into Vera's narrative. My Aunt Laura. "What's going on? Jared, are you okay?" My Uncle Frank. "Vara, what are you talking about?" Vara. "Dad gave away the health monitor I bought him, and now it's traveling across the country. I can't reach him. I'm worried." That last part was a lie. She'd reached me on Monday. We'd had an entire conversation, but she was reframing it now, building a story for the audience. I watched for another minute, then typed my own response. "The watch is no longer with me. I gave it to someone who needed it more. I'm fine, I'm at home, and I'm asking everyone to respect my privacy going forward. Vara, I meant what I said on Monday. These boundaries are not negotiable." I posted it and turned off notifications for the group chat. Within seconds, private messages started coming in. I ignored them all. An hour later, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Brenter, this is Jessica from First National Bank. I'm calling to confirm a request we received regarding your accounts." My stomach tightened. "What kind of request?" "Someone claiming to be your daughter called asking for account information. Account balances, recent transactions, contact details. We told her we couldn't provide that without your authorization. She seemed quite upset. She said it was an emergency, that she needed to verify you were competent to manage your finances. I wanted to verify with you directly that the privacy restrictions we have on file are still your preference." "They are, absolutely. She has no authorization to access my accounts. None." "That's what our system showed. I just wanted to make absolutely certain, given how insistent she was. I appreciate you calling. Yes, the restrictions stand. She should not have access to any information about my accounts." "Understood. We've documented this call. If she contacts us again, we'll refer her to our legal department." "Thank you." I hung up and sat very still. So that's how far she was willing to go. Calling my bank, claiming emergency, trying to access my private financial information under the guise of concern, testing the boundaries to see where they'd break. They wouldn't. Friday morning, I received an email from the legal consultant. The declaration of competency was ready for review. I read through it carefully. 3 pages of clear, formal language stating that I, Jared Brenter, was of sound mind, fully capable of managing my own affairs and acting of my own free will in all decisions regarding my health, finances, and legal matters. It detailed my employment history, my financial stability, my clean medical record. It cited my professional responsibilities and the trust placed in me by my employer. It noted that I lived independently, maintained my own household, and demonstrated consistent good judgment. It was thorough, comprehensive, exactly what I needed. I drove to her office during lunch and signed it in front of a notary. The notary was an older man, precise and formal, who verified my identity and watched me sign before adding his own seal and signature. "You understand this is a legal declaration?" he asked. "I do." "And you're signing it of your own free will, without coercion?" "I am." He nodded and completed the notarization. The legal consultant gave me 3 certified copies in protective folders. "Keep one in a safe place at home," she advised. "Give one to your primary care physician, and keep one in your car or with your important documents. If anyone questions your competency, formally or informally, these documents establish that you were proactive about demonstrating sound judgment." "Thank you." "How are things with your family member?" "Tense, but holding. She called my bank yesterday trying to access my accounts." Her expression darkened. "That's concerning. Did they give her any information?" "No, they followed protocol and called me to verify the privacy restrictions." "Good, that's good. But document everything. Keep records of every attempt she makes to access your information or override your decisions. If this escalates, you'll need that documentation." "I will." She nodded. "The advance directives should be ready by next Friday. In the meantime, if anything concerning happens, if she tries to file for guardianship, if she makes false reports to authorities, call me immediately." "I will, thank you." I left feeling fortified, protected, like I'd built walls that couldn't be climbed or broken through manipulation. That evening, I was home making dinner when the buzzer rang. I checked the intercom screen. So Vara. She was standing outside the building entrance, looking up at the camera. Her face was pale, drawn. She looked like she hadn't slept. I pressed the button. "What do you need, Vara?" "Let me in. We need to talk." "We've already talked." "Dad, please. I need to understand what's happening. Please." Her voice cracked on the last word. I could hear real distress there, not just manipulation. I hesitated, then buzzed her in. 2 minutes later, she was knocking on my door. I opened it. She looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back messily, still wearing her work clothes. She'd come straight from the office, probably, driven over as soon as she'd finished for the day. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She walked past me into the living room and stood there, arms crossed, not quite looking at me, like she was trying to gather courage. "I called the bank," she said finally. "I know. They wouldn't tell me anything." "That's correct. Dad, I'm your daughter. That doesn't give you access to my private financial information." She turned to face me then, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not hurt, fear. Real, genuine fear. "I don't understand what's happening," she said quietly. "I gave you a gift because I care about you, and now you're acting like I did something terrible. You're cutting me out of everything. You went to a lawyer, She stopped. "It feels like you're preparing for something, like you're expecting me to, I don't know, do something awful, and I don't understand why. I'm preparing to live my own life. By pushing me away? By setting boundaries you should have respected from the beginning. I never tried to control you. You tracked my location every minute of every day. You called constantly asking where I was, what I was doing, when I'd be home. You made decisions about my healthcare technology without explaining what you were actually setting up. You called the bank trying to access my accounts. You posted private information in a family group chat to embarrass me into compliance. That's not care, Vara. That's control. That's not..." She shook her head. "You're twisting everything." "Am I? Or are you finally seeing your actions for what they actually are?" She stared at me, and I could see her trying to find the words that would make this my fault, that would reframe her actions as reasonable, loving, justified, that would make me the unreasonable one, the ungrateful one, the one who didn't appreciate everything she'd done. She couldn't find them. The silence stretched between us. Outside, I could hear traffic, a siren in the distance, the normal sounds of the city continuing while we stood in my living room, facing each other across a divide that had been years in the making. "I just wanted to make sure you were safe," she said finally, voice breaking. "I know, but I never asked you to, and I never gave you permission to monitor me." "You said thank you when I gave you the watch, because I thought it was a health monitor, not a tracking device. You didn't explain what you were actually setting up. You didn't tell me you'd be watching my location constantly. You let me believe it was about heart rate and step counting, and you had to have known, that if you'd told me the truth, I would have said no." She looked away. "I thought you'd be resistant. I thought you wouldn't understand. You thought you knew better than me what I needed. And that's the problem, Vera. That's always been the problem. You don't trust me to make my own decisions." "That's not true. Then why the surveillance? Why the constant checking? Why the need to know where I am every second of every day?" She didn't answer. Couldn't answer because any answer would prove my point. "I think you should go," I said quietly. "Dad, I'm not angry, Vara. I'm just tired. And I need you to understand that this isn't up for debate. I'm not asking for your permission to have boundaries. I'm telling you they exist, and they're not going to change just because you don't like them." She stood there for another moment, then walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the handle. "I was just trying to help," she said without turning around. "I know." She left. I closed the door and locked it, then went back to the kitchen to finish making dinner. My phone stayed silent for the rest of the night. The weekend passed without incident. No calls, no messages, no surprise visits. I worked in my apartment, read a book I'd been putting off for months, took long walks without anyone monitoring my route. It felt strange at first, the absence of surveillance, like a pressure I'd grown so accustomed to that I only noticed it once it was gone. I kept reaching for my wrist, expecting to feel the watch, expecting the vibrations. But there was nothing, just my bare wrist and the freedom to move through the city unmarked, untracked. Saturday afternoon, I walked to a bookstore I hadn't visited in years, spent an hour browsing, bought 2 novels and a history book, sat in the small cafe at the back and read for another hour, drinking coffee and watching people. No one called asking where I was. No one sent messages asking when I'd be home. No one needed to know anything. It was liberating in a way I hadn't expected. By Sunday evening, I felt lighter than I had in years. Monday morning, I was back at work. Regular routine, regular tasks. The logistics coordinator stopped by my office mid-morning. "Jared, quick question about the Eastern Europe contract. The supplier sent revised terms. Can you take a look when you have a chance?" "Sure, send them over." He did. I spent an hour reviewing the changes. 3 clauses about delivery schedules, 2 about payment terms, 1 about dispute resolution. Flagged 3 potential issues where the new language could create liability for us. Drafted a response suggesting alternative wording that protected both parties. Sent it to the coordinator with recommendations. He replied within minutes. Perfect. This is exactly what we needed. Thank you. Don't know what we'd do without you. I smiled and went back to work. At lunch, I walked to the cafe and ordered my usual. The owner, an older man who'd run the place for 30 years, waved from behind the counter. Jared, haven't seen you in a few days. Everything good? Everything's good, thanks. Glad to hear it. Usual table? Please? I sat by the window and ate slowly, watching people pass by on the street. Mothers with strollers, delivery drivers, students with backpacks, an older couple walking hand in hand. The ordinary rhythm of the city. My phone buzzed. A text from Helen, my colleague from the compliance department. Drinks after work Friday. Few of us from the department, I typed back. Sounds good. Count me in. It was a small thing, but it mattered. I was making plans. Living. Not checking first to see if someone else approved. Not worrying about whether I'd have to explain my whereabouts or justify my choices. That evening, I was home reading when the family group chat lit up again. I'd turned notifications back on, curious to see if Vera would try again. She had. I want everyone to know that Dad and I are going through a difficult time right now. I'm asking for privacy and understanding while we work through it. I stared at the message. The framing, the careful language, the implication that this was a mutual struggle, something we were both navigating together, a temporary rough patch in an otherwise healthy relationship, not the truth that I had set boundaries and she was refusing to accept them. I typed a response. To clarify, I have established clear boundaries regarding my privacy and autonomy. I am not going through a difficult time. I am simply living my life as an independent adult. I ask that everyone respect that and refrain from involving themselves in what is, fundamentally, a matter between Vera and myself. I posted it. Within seconds, private messages started coming in. Aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly concerned, suddenly involved. Jared, what's going on? Are you okay? Do you need help? What happened between you and Vara? I turned off my phone and went to bed. Tuesday, I received an email from my primary care physician's office. The subject line read, regarding recent inquiry. I opened it. Dear Mr. Brentour, we wanted to inform you that we received a call yesterday from someone identifying herself as your daughter. She requested information about your recent medical visits, current health status, and any diagnoses or prescriptions. Per HIPAA regulations, we did not provide any information. However, given the nature of the inquiry, we wanted to make you aware. If you have any concerns or would like to update your privacy preferences, please contact our office. I called immediately. This is Jared Brenter. I received your email about the inquiry. Yes, Mr. Brenter. We wanted to make sure you were aware. I am. Thank you for following protocol. I want to make sure there's a note in my file that under no circumstances should information be shared with her, even if she claims it's an emergency. We can do that. We'll flag your account with a privacy alert. Any future requests will be denied and documented. Thank you. I appreciate it. I hung up and added another item to my mental list. Privacy wasn't just about setting boundaries. It was about protecting them through every possible channel. Medical, financial, legal. Every institution that held information about me needed to know that access was restricted. Wednesday, the legal consultant emailed again. The advanced directives were ready for review. I downloaded the files and read through them carefully. Healthcare proxy. Naming a colleague from work. Someone I trusted but who wasn't emotionally invested in controlling me. Someone who would respect my wishes without imposing their own fears. Power of attorney. Same colleague with clear limitations on what decisions they could make on my behalf. Living will. Specific instructions about end-of-life care. What interventions I wanted and didn't want. All designed to ensure my choices would be honored even if I couldn't speak for myself. All of it designed to ensure that my decisions remained mine, no matter what happened. I made a few minor revisions and sent them back. She replied, Perfect. I'll finalize these and have them ready for signature by Thursday afternoon. You're doing everything right, Mr. Brenter. You're protecting yourself through the proper channels. I signed them Thursday morning, filed copies with my doctor, my bank, and my attorney. Kept one at home in a fireproof safe I'd bought specifically for this purpose. By Thursday evening, I felt secure. Not because I expected Vera to escalate further, though I wasn't ruling it out, but because I'd done everything I could to protect my autonomy through proper channels. I'd used the systems, the ones she thought I was too old to understand, the ones she assumed I couldn't navigate without her help, and they'd worked. Friday afternoon, I left work early and met my colleagues at a bar near the office. 5 of us in total, people I'd worked alongside for years, trusted professionally, relied on daily, yet rarely saw outside of conference rooms and quarterly dinners. The bar was nothing special. Low ceiling, worn wooden tables, muted sports commentary playing on a television no one was really watching. We ordered drinks and settled into an easy rhythm. We talked about work first, deadlines, staffing issues, the supplier who never met timelines, then sports, then nothing in particular. So stories drifted in and out, half-finished jokes, shared complaints. I had 2 beers and felt pleasantly relaxed, the kind of looseness that comes from not having to explain yourself to anyone. For the first time all week, I wasn't checking my wrist. I wasn't thinking about where my phone was. Around 7, it buzzed in my pocket. The vibration alone was enough to tell me who it was. I glanced down. Vara. I opened the message without unlocking the screen. We need to talk about what you're doing. No greeting, no concern, no question. Poisson, I turned the phone face down on the table and went back to the conversation. One of my colleagues, Helen, the one who handled international compliance and never missed a detail, noticed the movement. "Everything okay?" she asked, casual but attentive. "Family stuff," I said. "Nothing urgent." She smiled faintly. "Family's always complicated." "That it is?" No follow-up, no pressure, just acceptance. The kind that felt rare lately. We stayed until 9. No one rushed, no one checked the time every 5 minutes. When we finally said our goodbyes, it felt natural, unforced. I walked home through quiet streets, hands in my pockets, the night air cool and steady. I felt content, centered, like myself again. When I got home, I kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of water, and finally checked my phone. 4 more messages from Vara. "Dad, you can't just cut me out like this. I'm trying to understand, but you won't talk to me. This isn't fair. Please." I sat down on the couch and stared at the screen longer than I needed to. Part of me wanted to respond, to soften it, to explain, again, that boundaries weren't punishment, that distance wasn't abandonment, that silence didn't mean something terrible had happened. But we'd already had that conversation, more than once. She wasn't looking for clarity or compromise. She was waiting for me to fold. I deleted the messages and went to bed. Saturday morning, I woke to silence. No notifications, no calls, no vibration on my wrist demanding explanation. I made breakfast slowly. Eggs, toast, coffee, read the news, did laundry, folded shirts. Ordinary tasks that felt almost defiant in their simplicity. Nothing dramatic, nothing monitored. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" "Mr. Brenter, this is Officer Davis from the local precinct. We received a wellness check request for your address. Are you all right?" My stomach tightened, sharp and immediate. "I'm fine," I said. "Who requested the check?" "Your daughter. She said she hasn't been able to reach you and was concerned." "I spoke with her yesterday. I'm perfectly fine. This is not an emergency." There was a pause on the line. "Are you sure?" She seemed quite worried. "I'm sure," I said, keeping my voice even. "My daughter and I are having a disagreement about boundaries. I'm not in danger, I'm not incapacitated, and I don't need assistance." Another pause. "All right," he said finally. "I'll make a note of that. If we get another request, we'll have this on file." "Thank you, officer." I hung up and sat very still. She hadn't just worried. She'd escalated. She'd involved the authorities, filed a false wellness check, and pulled strangers into a private conflict because I didn't respond fast enough. That wasn't concern anymore. That was control. I picked up the phone and called my legal consultant. "This is Jared Brenter," I said. "I need to document something." "What happened?" I explained everything. She listened without interrupting. "That's harassment," she said when I finished, "and misuse of emergency services. You can file a complaint." "Will that actually help?" "It creates a record, and if this escalates further, if she tries to claim you're incompetent or seeks guardianship, this pattern works against her, not you." I didn't hesitate. "Then let's do it. Come in Monday. We'll draft and file it." After we hung up, I did something I'd been avoiding for weeks. I opened the family group chat and typed carefully. "To everyone who's been contacted by Vera with concerns about my well-being, I am fine. I am healthy. I am competent. Vara and I have a disagreement about privacy and boundaries, and she has chosen to escalate that disagreement by involving third parties. I ask that you do not participate in this. If you have concerns, call me directly. Otherwise, please respect my request for privacy. This is the last time I will address this publicly. I sent it. Then I left the group chat. My phone stayed silent for the rest of the day, and for the first time in a long while, that silence felt earned. Monday morning, I went to the legal consultant's office before work. We spent an hour drafting the complaint, documenting the false wellness check, the bank inquiry, the medical records request. This paints a clear picture, she said. Someone who's attempting to control you by manufacturing crises and involving authorities without cause. Will it stop her? It should, and if it doesn't, it will protect you legally. I signed the complaint. She filed it electronically while I waited. You should receive confirmation within 48 hours, she said. After that, the authorities will have it on record. If she continues this behavior, there will be consequences. Thank you, and I went to work, focused on contracts, on details, on the kind of methodical problem-solving I was good at. At lunch, I got a call from Vera. I answered. You filed a complaint against me? Her voice was shaking. The police called me. They said you filed harassment charges. I documented a pattern of behavior. That's not the same thing. You made me sound like I'm some kind of criminal. You filed a false wellness check, Vara. You tried to access my private medical and financial records without permission. Those are facts. I was worried. And I told you I was fine, multiple times. You chose not to believe me. Because you're acting crazy. I took a breath, kept my voice level. I'm acting independently. There's a difference. This is insane. You're my father. I have a right to make sure you're okay. No. You have a right to care. You don't have a right to control. You did. And now you're facing the consequences of that. I gave you multiple chances to respect my boundaries. You chose to ignore them. So now the boundaries are legal, not just personal. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. Fine. You want me out of your life? Done. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't expect me to care when something actually does happen to you. Vara. She hung up. I sat at my desk, holding the phone, feeling something heavy settle in my chest. Not guilt, not regret, just sadness. For what could have been. For the relationship we might have had if she'd been willing to see me as a person, not a project. I put the phone away and got back to work. The next 2 weeks passed quietly. No calls from Vera, no messages, no surprise visits or wellness checks or attempts to access my records, just silence. I went to work, met colleagues for drinks, took walks, read books, lived my life without constant monitoring, without having to justify my movements or my choices. It felt strange at first, empty almost, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. But gradually, I adjusted, started to remember what normal felt like. 3 weeks after our last conversation, I received a text from Vera. I've been thinking about what you said. I stared at it, waited. Another text came through. I still don't agree with everything you did, but I'm trying to understand. I typed back carefully. I appreciate that. Can we talk? In person? I thought about it, weighed the risks, the possibility that this was just another attempt to argue me into backing down. But I also thought about the years before all this. The birthdays, the holidays, the moments when she'd been my daughter and I'd been her father, without all the complications. Yes, but on my terms. Coffee, public place, 1 hour. Okay. We met the following Saturday at a cafe downtown, neutral territory. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. I got you your usual, she said as I sat down. Thank you. We were quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. I talked to a therapist. I looked up. Yeah? She said I have control issues, that I use worry as an excuse to manage other people's lives because I'm afraid of what might happen if I don't. What do you think about that? I think she might be right. Vera looked down at her coffee. I think I've been doing that to you for years, and I didn't see it because it felt like love. It came from love, I said quietly. I know that. But love doesn't justify control. I know. I'm starting to know. It's hard. Change always is. She looked up at me then, and I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Vulnerability. Real vulnerability. Not the kind designed to manipulate. Can we try again? She asked. Slowly, with actual boundaries. I'd like that. I can't promise I won't worry. I'm not asking you not to worry. I'm asking you to trust me. She nodded. I'll try. We finished our coffee, talked about small things, her work, my work, a movie she'd seen. Nothing heavy, nothing confrontational. When we left, she hugged me. Quick, careful, like she wasn't sure if it was allowed. I hugged her back. See you next week? She asked. Same time, same place. Ugh, okay. I watched her walk away, then headed home through the afternoon streets. My phone buzzed. A message from Helen, my colleague. Trivia night Tuesday. You in? I smiled and typed back. Definitely. That evening, I sat in my living room with a book and a glass of wine, watching the sun set through the window. My phone was on the table, screen down. No alerts, no tracking, no one monitoring where I was or what I was doing. Just me, living, choosing, existing on my own terms. Somewhere hundreds of miles away, the smartwatch was still moving, still transmitting, still sending location pings to an app that no longer mattered. A traveling reminder that control, once released, couldn't be reclaimed. I raised my glass to the window, to boundaries, to systems, to the quiet victory of autonomy. And then I went back to my book.